Well, my first summer job was umpiring baseball in the summers. I would umpire everything from age 8 to 10 league the whole way up to age 18. And to earn that extra $10 bonus, I got myself state certified. And one of the things that I always did was really take seriously learning and reviewing and paying attention to the rules of the game. Most days before I would go out in the evening to umpire, I would take out that rule book, I would take out that casebook, and I would review things, review spots I needed some reinforcement on. And it was great for the game, of course, because then everything ran smoothly. And it was also great because sometimes the coaches weren't so sure of what the rules were, or they thought they knew what the rules were, but needed some gentle instruction. Often they would fall prey to what I would call the backyard baseball myths. Like one base on an overthrow. Well, sometimes it's two, sometimes it's one. Sometimes you can just keep running, it depends. Another one was batting out of order is an automatic out. Well, most of the time, yeah, batting out of order is an out, but if nobody catches it and you do it in just the right way, maybe not so fast. And those rules were pretty solid. Not much room for interpretation. But of course, in baseball, there can be a lot of room for interpretation on everything from the pitcher's delivery in terms of balks, the pitcher getting the delivery wrong. But the big one is the strike zone. Every umpire seems to have their own interpretation of the strike zone, along with coaches and hitters and parents and everybody else. And I would often work with other umpires on the field. We were a team. And sometimes I was working with another umpire, and we were working an 8 to 10-year-old game, and these are kids just learning to pitch, just learning to hit. And this guy is calling a major league strike zone about this big. And it was a disaster. It was a disaster. I'm standing out there in the bases in the hot sun. The parents are sitting in the stands in the hot sun. And all we're watching is ball 4, take your base. Ball 4, take your base. Ball 4, take your base. The kids had figured out, well, wait a minute. I don't have to swing. I'll just stand here and I'll take my base. Thank you very much. I took a different approach with that age group, which was, I'll follow the strike zone in the rule book. But if it was borderline, if I wasn't sure, I was calling a strike. Swing the bat, swing the bat, swing the bat. And what this did for the game at this level is the kids, they started getting that bat off the shoulder. They started swinging. They started learning how to hit. They'd get their first hits. Everybody would get excited. The game functioned as it was supposed to, at its heart, at its essence. And kids got the idea. In fact, one time I walked up and I would hear coaches say, oh, it's this umpire. Make sure to swing the bat. Got to swing the bat today. So the strike zone open to interpretation. Well, today in Luke, with that story of the woman who was healed by Jesus, there's this dispute between the leader of the synagogue and of Jesus. And to be clear, this is a matter of interpretation. It can be so easy to look at a passage or a story like this and get the idea that Jesus was like, rules, laws, we don't need your rules. We don't need your laws, just cancel them out. I'm going to heal on the Sabbath if I want to. That's not what's going on here. That is not what's going on here. It's not one of those legalistic Jewish synagogue leader and, kind, friendly Jesus swooping in to save the day from those awful mean laws. No, it's a difference of interpretation. Jesus was all about the law. In fact, in Matthew, there's this passage where Jesus says, I have not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. Not one letter, not one stroke of the law is going to be removed. And Jesus kept Sabbath. He was there in the synagogue on the Sabbath. And Jesus took time for rest and release and time with God. There's lots of stories in the Bible where Jesus tries to go off and pray and to get his break. Jesus believed in Sabbath. Jesus believed in following the laws. So we have both the synagogue leader and Jesus. They both believe in following the law. They both uphold the Ten Commandments. And they both believe in the Sabbath. So why do we get this disagreement? It's because the Sabbath had this injunction. The idea is that you don't work on the Sabbath. Right? But that gets open to interpretation. It's based on what you think the definition of work is. Right? What constituted work on the Sabbath? And did this curing of this woman constitute a violation of the Sabbath law that everybody agreed, including Jesus, oh yeah, we got to keep the Sabbath? And Jesus, he uses a technique that many scholars say was very common in Jewish debates of the day. It was called going from the lighter to the greater. And so an example of lighter would be, oh, okay, on the Sabbath, your animals need to drink. They need refreshment. They need release. So you'll unbind or untie your animal to go get that drink of water that they need. How much more important is this woman than that animal? Hence the greater. Why shouldn't she be unbound? Why shouldn't she be unbound to refreshment and release? And then everybody in the crowd says, yes, that makes perfect sense. Jesus is living into the fullness, the heart of what the Sabbath is about. And it's about two things. It's about refreshment and rest in honoring God and freedom. And it's also about remembering and setting apart time for God. And we see this in those 10 commandments where keep the Sabbath day holy. In Exodus, in that list of the 10 commandments, it says keep the Sabbath holy because of the creation. Because of God on the seventh day creating a time for rest. So it's built into creation. And then in Deuteronomy, on that list of the 10 commandments, it says, keep the Sabbath because you were once in bondage in Egypt and you have been freed, you have been delivered. And so we have those two key points, created for rest on the Sabbath and created for liberation, for release, for freedom on the Sabbath. And so in the ancient world, the Sabbath for the Jewish people wasn't one more requirement, one more law. Oh gosh, we got to keep the Sabbath now too. It was a gift. It was a blessing. It was a godsend. It's a gift from God. You have to remember that in the ancient world, most people, not all, but most people, are working a very hard life. Subsistence farming, hard labor. There were servants, there were debt servants, there were slaves. People were working hard. People were oppressed. But this one day on the Sabbath, each week, it didn't matter if you were a king or a slave. The law said you were to get a break. You were to get a day off. You were to have time with God. The Sabbath is a gift in the ancient world. And you know what? It's a gift to us today too. It's not supposed to be one more, burdensome obligation I've got to check off my list. Now, most of us today aren't as oppressed as those who were living in ancient times. But there's so much that calls out to us in our life, in our society. It says, do more, do more, do more. Your value is based on how far you climb up the corporate ladder, how many promotions you get, how much work you get done, how high your grades are, how much you really push into studying and practicing and all that. That's your value. God says, no, that's not your value. Your value is that you are loved and created by me, the Lord your God. I created you, God says. God knows how the game's supposed to go. God knows how we're supposed to function. God knows what you need, and God knows you need a rest sometimes. God knows you need a rest sometimes. And in fact, this concept of needing rest, of needing a break, has even filtered its way some into leadership books and materials. There's this book, classic leadership book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? Habit number 7 is called Sharpen the Saw. And there's this story in the book about these two groups. There's these two groups of people, and they're both trying to cut down a tree. And they both have their saw, and they both set out to cut down this tree. And the first group, they're sawing away. No, we can't stop. We have to keep sawing. We got to get this tree to come down. And then there was the second group. The second group said, okay, we're going to saw. You know what? We need to break. We need to resharpen that saw. We need to get refreshed, have that sharp saw, and go back and cut down that tree. And in the story, it's that group that took breaks, that group that sharpened their saw, that had that tree come down first. Right? So even in leadership, even in the business world, there's starting to be this idea that, you know what? We need rest, we need breaks. And within the church, we say, yes, of course. This is how it's been since creation. This is how God created things to be. So make sure you're getting that rest. Make sure you're getting that refreshment. Make sure you're getting that freedom, that release, that liberation from all those expectations that we can put on ourselves, or society can put on ourselves, that weigh us down. And make sure to keep a time of Sabbath that is holy, because the other part of this is on the Sabbath, we get time to build our relationship with God, and that relationship is life-giving. It's empowering. It's refreshing. It's inspiring. You know, each week when we come up here and receive the bread and wine and communion, you know, that catechism in the book, The Common Turn Back, it says in receiving the bread and the wine and communion, we're forgiven. We get a fresh start. When you come here from the Sabbath on Sundays or other times to receive communion, when you receive communion, you get forgiveness. You get a fresh start. You get the presence of Christ moving in you and through you to refresh you and to lead you on into the week. So today, we remember from that story in the Gospels that the Sabbath is not just one more obligation we have to fulfill just a set of rules. The Sabbath, like the rest of God's law, is in fact a gift. A gift that gives us refreshment, a gift that gives us wholeness, a gift that liberates us, and a gift that sets us free. So keep that Sabbath. Amen.
Amen.